Ryan Garcia has come an incredibly long way to the top training since childhood. The guy constantly developed to become what he's a new superstar division. This kid is a superstar, headed the exact same thing he did to Romero Juno in round. He's out at the same time. As Ryan lightweights were being terrified by a no less gifted boxer, he made his path to championship from the bodies of knocked out opponents and like Garcia, turned into aerial celebrity finished. Davis was that since absolute dominance. Davis don't blink with that young man fights. It'll be unbelievable. And only now the paths of the two most talented boxers of the last years have crossed, and they have a great opportunity to find out who is the best in the rings. Let's take a look back at the journey the fighters took, how they improved, and what they accomplished to be. Or now have a seat, folks, because the countdown to the Ryan Garcia-Gervonta Davis fight is ahead of you. Please don't forget about the likes, comments with 4 words, and subscribe to the channel so you will never miss any upcoming videos. Here we go. Before we dive into the story of the conflict, I suggest Witta. Key a closer look at the guys' backgrounds. Garcia grew up in a well-to-do family, and from an early age, he was learning all the skills of boxing in his own garage, under the tireless supervision of his father. At the same time, the future champion Gervonta grew up in criminal Baltimore and started boxing not for self-development, to protect himself. Yet later, Davis was so carried away by this sport that he discarded everything else and concentrated fully on his career. As a result, athletes with such different stories ended up in the same environment. Namely, the Emmett, Your Arena, the future Flash, and Tank were unbelievably successful in their performances, and within a few years each had more than 200 victories, which eventually led them to the professionals. The young talents were developing incredibly fast, and soon there was an idea to bring them together. They first started talking about it 4 years ago. At that time, the Flash held then a youth champion title and defended it against Fernando Vargas. Had a beautiful combination. That's exactly what Ryan Garcia possesses, his power, and the fight is over with Ryan K. In Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya quickest Severgets right up. There were 2 minutes 55 seconds is all he needed in this first round. Wow, it took the guy only 3 minutes to punish the Mexican veteran with his signature left hook, a deep knockout from a young talent. But while Ryan was enjoying his youth titles, the Baltimore native was making a lot more splash in the division. Gervonta had already held the actual IBF champion's belt, but lost it because of being overweight. This event did not put the Tank out of action, and he continued to hunt for more achievements as well as for the heads of his opponents. Joined the fight with Argentinian Jesus. Davis claimed the WBA super titles in the future is absolutely so right. From the Baltimore favorites in a more than 3-round she annihilated and knocked out his very experienced opponent with his gunfire performance, worthy of a true champion. After all the fireworks the guys put on in their last fights, it was clear that sooner or later they would have to meet and decide who was the strongest. This weight category was too tight for two such gifted boxers. Garcia was the first one to talk about the fight. I know for a fact that right now it was on pay-per-view, and we would sell it out. It would be crazy. Everybody would want to watch. I didn't know for a fact Tiff well promoted it the way that I know we probably both could. It would be a pay-per-view fight right now. Who says he wants to fight on pay-per-view? Let's do it. He's waiting for it. The much more titled and frankly more experienced champion, I'm in the person of the Tank, took this idea with obvious sneakers. Doesn't matter who you fight them, it doesn't matter. As long as I put in a great performance whenever whoever he fights, it doesn't matter. I don't believe that it's a big fight. Tier out there that no, I do that no new. What's his first name? Ryan. Oh, you want to hang out? That's your money. I think that's gonna be like, that's gonna be the money, but it's not. I don't want him. No, I want him money mature. As it turned out, Gervonta was right. And then they were not destined to share the ring after his high-profile interview. Ryan won't the Nab Van WB Onabot. It was in his next appearance, and then decided to continue his career in new lightweight division. The guys' paths diverged, but Garcia's decision was justified for many reasons. King Rai had been gay to safe featherweight since he was 15 to 16, and by the age of 19, it was getting harder and harder for him to cut down to 130 pounds. Besides, in the next weight class, there were much more famous boxers of victory over whom would help Flash to spine even stronger. The debut in 135 pounds was not the best. On the Mexican, Carlos Morales lost almost all rounds to the brilliant kid, but by some miracle in the eyes of one of the judges, earned a draw. Luckily, 2 other judges.
Me and Gervonta fought right now. It would be on pay-per-view, and we would sell it out. It would be crazy. Everybody would want to watch. I just know for a fact, if we all promoted it the way that I know we probably both could, it would be a pay-per-view fight right now. He says he wants to fight on pay-per-view. Let's do it.
Like, I'm living my life. I'm living my dreams. So say whatever you want. I'm going to keep improving, and I'm just going to feel I'm going to jet better and better each time. So at the same time, Tank chose to linger in his division and continue to defend the belt. Although like Ryan, he had serious trouble.
See, there's a big fighter out there that, no, I did.
Who's that long?
No.
Tank.
Not long.
Mike?
No. No.
Who? What's his first name?
Ryan.
Scored one scary knockout after another. Especially poor guy Ricardo Nunes was in trouble in just 6 minutes. Davis turned his opponent's face into a bloody chop with a torrent of harsh punches after that performance. It was what you'd expect. Tank and his team finally came to the conclusion that the champion had had enough of 130 pounds. It was time to advance to the lightweight division. Upon his entrance into the next category, Gervonta got this title shot immediately. Taking into consideration all the achievements of the American in the featherweight division, it was hard to deny his claims for a new title as an opponent. Davis was chosen far from a passable guy. Cuban Yarkiz Gamboa, event ho he didn't fight that often, lately had a very impressive record of 30-2, and taking into consideration his size, he could be a problem for the 12th and final round, as Davis comes to life at the end of round 11. Still standing, the Tank was beating his opponent up for 11 rounds, and the Cuban's strong jaw was taking all the Davis cannon punches. But at the end of the fight event, couldn't hold him, and Gamboa collapsed on the canvas completely. Exhausted, Gervonta's lightweight transition was much brighter than Garcia's, and the Tank won a new title, becoming the best according to the WBA. While the Baltimorean was conquering a new division and picking up more and more belts, Ryan continued to face quite easy opponents.
I'm not even supposed to be doing this. That's why it's a blessing. Haters can talk all they want. At 20 years old, what were you doing? Like, I'm living my life. I'm living my dream. So say whatever you want. I'm going to keep improving, and I'm just going to feel like I'm going to get better and better.
Due to his hurt, who knew sure wow, it's over. That's a superstar performance right there. Brian, it took Brian just one round to knock out the would-be Romero and get not one, but two belts. The WBO title was held by the Filipino himself, and the WBC silver title was vacant the moment of Lash became the lightweight champion for the first time. Undoubted, this victory was very important for Garcia's status, but the fight that followed was much more interesting exactly in terms of his long-standing conflict with Davis. What are we talking about? The fact is that Ryan's new opponent was Nicaraguan-born Francisco Fonseca, with a record of 252-2. What's notable about this guy, 3 years ago, Francisco was undefeated and very promising newcomer, making his first claim on the belt, but he did it at 130-odd pounds against, who do you think? Of course, Gervonta Davis. That day the Tank did not fight under the weight limit and lost this belt, but despite that he knocked out Fonseca in the 8th round. Since then, the boxer from Nicaragua was no longer the same. He began to mix wins and draws, and in his next title fight, he suffered another defeat. After which he decided to transition to the next division, where he had already signed a contract with Garcia. In this fight, Ching Rai had two super important tasks. First was to defend his belts, and the second, much more important, to beat Fonseca brighter and faster than Davis. Dunno, let's get started back. It's over there. He's done it again. Ryan Garcia, a shocking win for Garcia in the first round. Francisco just did not expect such power and speed from the kid. It was in this fight that Ryan was called the new Tank in lightweights, but considering the result, it is safe to say that Herr Flash surpassed his eternal rival. Garcia scored 2 knockouts in the first round in a row. He doesn't even seem to think about stopping the Flash. He was finally at the top. His winning streak in the lightweight division was already 5 fights forward by knockouts. The Baltimore puncher's performances were not so frequent after destroying Cuban combo. Gervonta disappeared for almost a year, but the wait for his return was worth it. Davis' new opponent turned out to be Mexican Leo Santa Cruz, who had been one of the best boxers in this weight class in the last few years, and has also held belts in 4 different weight classes. No matter what you say, the level of opposition between the Tank and Garcia was still drastically different. The guys showed a true champion fight, but there was only one real King Gervonta Davis stop. Mexican fighter in the 6th round, and confirmed his status as one of the best fighters in lightweight at the moment. The audience and commentators were all excited about the Tank's performance. Except Garcia. Watching the success of his nemesis, Ryan knew that he had to catch up with Davis, and for that it was vital to beat worthy opponents and win the belt of one of the 4 major organizations very soon. A real tough opponent was found, It turned out to be the British Olympic champion, Luke Campbell, who was coming off the loss to Vasily Lomachenko, but still was aided very high in the boxing community. Also, the WBC interim champion title was at stake in this fight. It looks like Garcia killed two birds with one stone here. Much more flat when it seems like he wants to. The start of the fight was a complete surprise to everyone. Luke knocked the prospect down in the second round. Garcia got up top and went to let the Brit know that he shouldn't have done that, so saying to Ryan Garcia, "Jury cupcake." The Flash proved to everyone that he was not afraid of trouble, and even if he fell, he would keep fighting no matter what. Finally, Ryan treed on. In turn, but no less important, belt of one of the major organizations, the boy lives up to the expectations. Now, a potential bout with Davis is being talked about with renewed vigor, and the promotion is once again in the hands of Ryan, who came to Mike Tyson's podcast and challenged the Tank through video call. Baby, 2 rounds. I don't care, you're on pause. 2 rounds, you're going to sleep toward you ain't, it's not gonna hurt. I promise you it's not gonna hurt. I don't care what you got, yeah, haul that boy, you won't be able to touch me. You ain't never fight a 135 in your life, just different. I don't care what you say, you ain't got nothing, boy. I don't care, you glee to be champ, let's go. Didn't even take a physical confrontation to get everyone talking about this fight. Eddie Atlas also talked about his vision for this fight and even compared it to the great confrontation. It's Frazier and Ali, to get to the point quick, to make an optics, to put optics out there. It's a guy that's the big puncher coming after you against the guy who's gotta control their ring and box and use those skills and bit that guy, but he will say, and then I could thoroughly to the point of where I want to go. But don't count David Shorten just being a secret destroy guy. He's got instincts to counterpunch despite the history of the conflict, and importantly, the mutual dislike of both guys. Meeting never happened. Ryan and Gervonta's paths diverged again as one of them switched weights, so once more this time, it was a Tank. Davis moved up to the super lightweight division, where he decided to fight for the WBA title against Mario Barrios, who was in good position, right-hand the body by Barrios. It was a tough start for Davis, but after finding his rhythm and distance, the Tank just blew Mario away like another obstacle. Fantastic power and speed of the champion. Even in the later rounds, it seemed that with such a stunning victory and a title in a new category, Davis could stay in the welterweight division, but Gervonta knew that with his size, it would be hard to take on the local giants, so he moved back down to the lightweight division. That year here, he was eagerly awaited by WBA title challenge. Arizek Cruzan 12 full rounds took on his Mexican opponent, but it was not an easy win. Not only did he have to fight for a full 36 minutes, but also the score was pretty close after 2 fights in which the Tank had some real problems. People started to talk about how Gervonta was on the decline, and his best years were in the featherweight division. These rumors couldn't help but cheer the young and loaded Garcia, who to the surprise of any had been late and hasn't completed in over a year. Chingray has been preparing long and hard for his comeback, and he has been helped by his new trainer Joe Goosen. The opponent for the long-awaited comeback was Emmanuel Tego, who had not lost 31 fights in a row as in the recent Gervonta's fight. The audience did not see the finish here, but Flash delivered aerial class to his vis-a-vis and unlike his nemesis, destroyed his opponent with a huge margin. What you learned, being a Joe Goosen in your corner. Talk a little bit more about your victory. What? I think it was more just getting back in the ring after a year and a half. The work with I'm doing what Joe is going to come naturally, like, I don't need to force anything. I was trying my best to get him out of there. I knew I was more skilled than him. He couldn't really do anything to him. I was winning every round, but deciding not to sit in the bench anymore. Garcia accepted another fight very soon. His next opponent was the Dominican Javier Fortuna, who had been on the top for several years and had fought the established lightweight boxers. Absorb any more punishment here tonight. Out comes the mouthpiece. Vermont Ryan passed the test as confidently as possible in the form of Fortuna and did know who his next opponent would be. Things were not so easy for Davis in life. The American decided to take the serious step and terminate the contract with his famous manager Floyd Mayweather Jr. Money had accompanied the Tank for several years in his rise as a star, but lately Gervonta started increasingly wishy Floyd, and the last straw was to arrange a fight with Rolando Romero. The undefeated guy with a 14-0 record seemed too easy and frankly a passing opponent for Davis, but the Baltimorean still took the fight. He seems kind of awkward. You tend this, but there's not the one. It's a big lifted Tank. Clearly showed all doubters that he doesn't give up at all and is ready to fight the best, anytime and anywhere, because now it's up to him to decide who Davis will cross the gloves with. The answer to his next opponent came pretty quickly. Gervonta made the decision to close the old question and fight the kid who has been challenging him for a fight for a few years now. Bryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. This particularly great fight was just recently announced and scheduled for January 2023. Finally, the story will be finished again. Very interesting fight, very dangerous fight, a lot of danger for Godzilla for Ryan, because this guy really can put the lights out. They really can him. You can't get caught going back. He'll look to catch her going straight back and step butch and catch it that way. If it very dangerous fight, I think you hits danger for Tank too, because reaches in a little bit that cantaloupe took of Godzilla, since as good as any, it's as good as any, he's that good with it. But just recently, some details have come to light in January. Tank will fight some Hector Garcia, and at the same tournament, Ryan Garcia will meet the Filipino Mercida. Guest is after that both guys will finally fight against each other. The contracts for which are already signed, and we should note expect this meeting until April at the earliest. Garcia and Davis have come a long way to this fight. From being a young and unexperienced boxer, Ryan has step-by-step evolved into an elite counterpuncher.